All right, brothers and sisters, for those who may not know me, my name is Brother Willie Muhammad. I'm the student minister of Muhammad Mosque number 46 here in the city of New Orleans, and the New Orleans striving to be the New Orleans representative of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. I'm doing this video, and it's going to cover some information, but it's specifically to address some of the things that were said in this interview by Rabbi Daniel Bortz. Someone posted this on Facebook, and I just decided to show you in a very, this is like what I'm about to do is like really off the cuff. Like, this is not me really sitting down and getting into all of the facts that can be brought to this. I'm showing that I want this video to be an example to our people and those who want the truth and desire the truth, and to those who try to come after the Nation of Islam and the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. I want to show you all that, listen, the truth is on our side. And just this little example, just to show you, and I pray that those who are watching this video, that you go and research what I'm saying, because I'm going to say where I got this information from, and you can go and research it. But let me start off by saying this, because this is very key, because in what I'm about to say, what we're about to go over, some people might end up twisting this like they twist the words of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. I'm speaking for myself first, and I'm going to say what I heard the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan heard him say. Listen, brothers and sisters, what happened to the Jewish people in Germany was horrific, is horrific. We don't condone what Hitler did. We don't say that they deserve what they experienced. That was horrific. And Hitler deserves every punishment that comes to him for that. The same with all of those who helped him. I don't want you in no way, shape, or form to think that what we're about to talk about, the truth of what we're about to talk about, is in some way, shape, or form of us trying to say that we condone that. No, we condemn that horrific act that took place in Germany. So I want that to be clear. Now, that's me speaking. But I also want to say that's the way that the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan feels himself. So if you happen to see this, the young brother who's doing this video, I want you to know that. And for the rabbi and other rabbis and other members of the Jewish community who may see this, the ADL who may see this, YouTube who may see this, it's important for you all to understand that as well. Because what have I noticed about YouTube, we have included in a playlist that is defending the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan against anti-Semitism. You all, YouTube, speaking to YouTube, you all continue to keep deleting this video with the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, his actual words that were said about Hitler. But you can't get rid of it. We have our records, and we're going to continue to keep putting this out. So I want that to be said, because the rabbi kind of he says something in there that's not true. But we're going to, inshallah, with the help of Almighty God Allah, we're going to deal with it. But I just felt that has to be put out there, because I don't want anybody to think that or look at us the way that this media does. Because if you didn't know any better, brothers and sisters, you would think that the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan is a person that's going around trying to get somebody to do harm to members of the Jewish community. And I'm going to show some videos. And what I'm noticing in my back and forth on social media, Twitter primarily, that many people have not heard the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan for themselves. That most of them are only repeating the sound bites that are played by this media. They're repeating what the ADL dossiers that they've put together, which takes the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan's words completely out of context. And that does a disservice to the members of the Jewish community and to the American people and to people all over the world. Just tell the truth. But they do that as a way to paint the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan as a villain, so they can raise money in the name of we're fighting anti-Semitism. And they do that as a way to divert the real heart of the matter, which we're going to talk about. So at the 9:37, right around 9:37 in this video, I'm going to put the clips. He says how Hitler, he said the minister said that Hitler was a great man.
I thought Nick Cannon's things were both the conspiracy theory about banking and also the idea that the Jewish people today are not the real Jews. And Louis Farrakhan, man, like I just got to mention it. I know he's done a lot of good for the Black community. I know, you know, Million Man March, Snoop Dogg loves him for that Million Man March. I'm sure he's done a lot of Black empowerment, but he's also said some crazy things about Jews. In 1984, he said that Hitler was a very great man.
This is what he says, right? Now, I'm going to show you some videos, and I'm going to be back and forth jumping through this stuff, so apologize how it looks. We may try to edit it, but we'll show you some stuff. He said that Minister Farrakhan said that Hitler was a great man. Now, I want you to hear the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan's words for yourself.
He's already blessing me to do this. But I'm not going to be satisfied until we are awake to such a degree that we would be happy to make examples of these kinds of rotten leaders, male and female, who suck the blood of our community, but then do nothing to help our poor people get up. It is rotten leadership that has our people at the foot of the nations of the earth. And it is only when we get strong, bold leadership and strong, bold men and women who will take a stand with that strong, bold leadership that we will come out of this terrible condition that we're in. So I said to the members of the press, why won't you go and look into what we are saying about the threats on Reverend Jackson's life? Here the Jews don't like Farrakhan, so they call me Hitler. Well, that's a good name. Hitler was a very great man. He wasn't great for me as a Black person, but he was a great German. And he rose Germany up from the ashes of her defeat by the united force of all of Europe and America after the First World War. Yet Hitler took Germany from the ashes and rose her up and made her the greatest fighting machine of the 20th century. Brothers and sisters, and even though Europe and America had deciphered the code that Hitler was using to speak to his chief of staffs, they still had trouble defeating Hitler even after knowing his plans in advance. Now, I'm not proud of Hitler's evil against Jewish people.
Well, let's bring that back. Let's bring that back.
But no,
let's
Europe
bring that back.
And America
listen to what he says.
Had deciphered the code that Hitler was using to speak to his chief of staffs. They still had trouble defeating Hitler even after knowing his plans in advance. Now, I'm not proud of Hitler's evil against Jewish people.
Evil.
But that's a matter of record. He rose Germany up from nothing. Well, in a sense, you could say there's a similarity in that we are rising our people up from nothing. But don't compare me your wicked killers. Why would we tolerate this? I've been among black people as a teacher from the Honorable Elijah Muhammad.
Now I'm going to stop that right there. Did you hear that? Honestly, in your hearts of hearts, in your hearts of hearts, did it sound like that man was praising Adolf Hitler? Honestly, if you're honest, brothers and sisters, you would have to know that no, he wasn't. But we're not going to stop there. Inshallah, we're going to show you something else. We're going to show you something else where the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan once again explains that. And they know this because we're going to show you, inshallah, always inshallah, we're going to show you some other stuff to show how they manipulate the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan's words. Here's the minister explaining this clearly again.
Farrakhan, did you hail Hitler? How could I hail a man that didn't care 2 cents for black people? How could I hail a man that is reported to have murdered 6 million Jews? How could I hail him? Well, what did you say? I said he was a great man. You see, you're praising him again. Oh, shut up. You got a dictionary at home? Why don't you get it out when you go home and look up the meaning of the word great? If Hitler were not great, he would not have spanned the time. His magnitude has affected the politics of the world. That's greatness. When you can live beyond a generation and move men's minds to think and affect their minds even after you're dead and gone, that's greatness. But it does not mean that that is goodness. The Bible calls Babylon the Great. Why didn't you take the Bible writers to task? That Babylon was a notorious city, filled with wickedness of every kind. How could you call Babylon the Great? Because she affected all of the nations of the earth at her time. She was great, but she was not good. Egypt was great, but she was not good. Rome was great, but she was not good. America is great, but America is not good.
Stop right there. You have common sense. What did that sound like to you? But here this man can say Farrakhan said Hitler was great. Well, wait, let me show you some hypocrisy of this. Let me show you some hypocrisy.
As nuclear non-proliferation.
That's not it. I'll show you this hypocrisy. Check this out. And notice, while you're watching this, notice what they don't say about the former president of the United States. Check it out. You see it? Young JFK's diary reveals his fascination with Adolf Hitler. Check it out.
A high-profile auction is putting a new spotlight on John F. Kennedy and his view of Adolf Hitler. For the first time, JFK's only diary will go on the auction block. The then 28-year-old wrote about visiting Germany shortly after World War II. He also shared his startling take on Hitler. Tony DeCopo is in Washington with the history of the diary reveals. Tony, good morning.
Good morning. When JFK was writing about Hitler, the dictator's suicide had happened just 4 months earlier.
Look at his smile.
JFK's diary was published in book form in the mid-1990s, But now we're getting a look at the handwritten pages, and it's showing us a side of Kennedy we've never seen before.
This generation of Germans has earned the right to be free.
Some 2 decades before addressing crowds in West Berlin as president, John F. Kennedy wrote these 61 diary pages, 12 in longhand, 49 typed, in the summer of 1945. Germany had just surrendered, and the 28-year-old JFK was touring Europe as a newspaper correspondent, traveling shoulder to shoulder with leaders from around the world. The young JFK's final destination, Germany, just months after the Allied victory. Already a scholar on global politics, Kennedy seemed fascinated with Hitler and his place in history, writing, "He had in him the stuff of which legends are made, and within a few years, Hitler will emerge from the hatred that surrounds him now as one of the most significant figures who ever lived." Bobby Livingston works for the auction house offering the diary.
There's no glorification, and I wouldn't take this out of context. I think Kennedy was a historian, and he's writing his understanding of Hitler's place in history.
Kennedy writes, "Hitler had boundless ambition for his country, which rendered him a menace to the peace of the world, but he had a mystery about him in the way he lived and the manner of his death that will live and grow after him." Kennedy gave the diary to his Senate research assistant, Deidre Henderson, who published it in book form in the mid-90s. She's now auctioning the original document, providing a new window into the man who would be president.
He's about to embark on this incredible journey to the presidency, and here it is in his handwriting, the beginning of this journey.
And the diary is going to go on auction on April 26th. The winning bid is expected to be about $200,000, but for a one-of-a-kind piece of Kennedy history, that is not too many Benjamins. Anthony?
Actually seems relatively low, that estimate, but
anyway, what a piece of history and what a document to read.
Tony DeCopel. Thanks, Tony.
Now,
how would you like to help local
Let's
businesses?
stop this. Let me stop this. Let me bring this up. What did you? I'm coming back to this. Come here. We're gonna come here before we get into that. Coming before we get into that. Oops. I'm gonna come here. Let's start here. So, I want you to look here. Before we get into that, I want you to look. What did you notice that they didn't say about John F. Kennedy in that video? You notice they never referred to him as an anti-Semite. He's an historian. That's all he was doing. In the guy who works in the research, he said, let's not take this out of context. Don't say that this man was praising Hitler. He was looking at Hitler as a historical figure. Listen, I don't like Abraham Lincoln. But that doesn't take me, my dislike of Abraham Lincoln because his position toward black folks, that doesn't mean that I have to ignore and deny the fact that this man made he's referred to as great as a politician, as a historical figure in the United States of American history. That means he was great. But as the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan said, that doesn't mean that he was good. Now I want to show you this over here on this side. Move this back over here. I know it's a lot of information, but we got to give it to you if you want the truth, because they're gonna stop lying on us. That's about to stop. So look at this, right? This is from one of our researchers, Brother Dimitri Muhammad, part of the research team. Here, he has this guy by the name of, he's a history journalist, bust ADL for lying on Minister Farrakhan. What did they lie about? Well, let's look at it. Oh yeah, that's he talking. In 1984, Boston Globe columnist David Nyhan reported that the Anti-Defamation League of the B'nai B'rith deleted Farrakhan's words. The Anti-Defamation League. They did what? They deleted his words. He says, now, quote, I'm not proud, the minister's words, now, quote, I'm not proud of Hitler's evil actions against Jewish people, but that's a matter of record. Look at the 3 dots, ... but don't compare me with your wicked killers. Nine wrote that the ADL defended the deletions. Alan Swartz, assistant director and researcher of the ADL in New York, said in a phone interview that he omitted 2 sentences for reasons of brevity and that he in no way twisted Farrakhan's remarks to make the Black Muslim leader seem more pro-Hitler than he is. Quote, end of quote. Nahan then articulated the ADL's obvious distortion of Farrakhan's words. But the fact remains, Farrakhan originally said, "I'm not proud of Hitler's evil against the Jewish people." And he added, "Don't compare me with your wicked killers." They deleted these 2 phrases. They just show where it say Farrakhan says Hitler's a great man. And they deleted this and they defend deleting it. And this is the lie they keep telling over and over and over again. So the writer says, to delete these phrases changes Farrakhan's meaning. However, neither readers in 1994 nor during the march were made aware of Farrakhan's rejection of the comparison with the condemnation of Hitler as one of our wicked killers. They put pressure on the NAACP not to allow the minister to participate in the march. The deletion of such a context, critical context, and the reported explaining away of its significance could indicate a tendency on part of those who constantly condemn Farrakhan as anti-Semitic to only report and print the news that fits the agenda or bias of the racial status quo, meaning they only use the words that paint the picture of the minister that they want painted of them, right? The omission of such an important context makes suspect other charges against Farrakhan. It also indicates the need of an in-depth study of the secret relationship between Jews and Blacks committed to uncovering the whole truth than those facts that fit preconceived views, Reverend William Albers, the Trotter report. They lie. They lie. And so, you know, the young brother interviewed the rabbi. He didn't seem like he said he wasn't going to be confrontational. He just let the rabbi say what he needed to say. But this is why, to all of those who are going to be interviewing them, when you give them that mic, you need to bring somebody from the Nation of Islam to be a part of that, because we know how to question them and challenge them, and we have the facts from their archives that they are indeed lying. Let's go further. Now, another thing that the guy said, the rabbi, and I understand the sensitivity that comes from the Jewish community. I understand it. I understand the sensitivity, but listen, brother, we can't allow you to make the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan until this bad man. Like the minister is doing this. And this is the lie that they are spreading to future and current generations of the Jewish community. So let me stop right here. Pause. So you hear the guy say, he says this.
In 85, he said, "Don't forget when God puts you in the ovens, it's forever. Satanic Jews."
That Minister Farrakhan said, God is going to put Jewish people in the oven. Well, here's Minister Farrakhan's words concerning his intentions and what he wants to see with Jewish people. This is the Mike Wallace interview. You can pull it up. You can watch the whole thing. But check it out. And think. Check it out.
I am willing to visit the board of rabbis in any city in America, sit down and talk with those scholars of Judaism. I am willing to visit a synagogue and speak to the Jewish people, because I do not want Jewish children to believe that they have somebody who, if he comes into great power, will put them in ovens. I don't want that for my children. I don't want that for your children. And if we don't want that for our children, then the question is, what are we willing to do today to stave off any ugly future?
Have you made that kind of a suggestion before, Minister Farrakhan?
Yes, I have.
And what has been the response?
Well, there are always preconditions. Well, Farrakhan, if you tone down your rhetoric.
Well, you sure haven't toned down your rhetoric.
I can't tone down what I believe to be truth. And if it's truth and if I'm in error, how am I going to know that? Unless there's a dialogue. And you say, no, Farrakhan, here's the truth. And if you can show me that I love truth, and I hope that I'm humble enough to be open enough to see the truth, to be open enough to see the truth if you show it to me.
My Jewish friends will say,
stop right there. But you see the point? They don't,
Wallace,
they don't show that aspect about the minister. They make you believe, oh, he said he praised Hitler. And see, that's one of the dangerous things about calling the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan Hitler. Because when you label somebody as Hitler, then what you're saying is that this person has the same intention and motive that Hitler had toward the Jewish people. But you just heard the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan's words for yourself. Why don't the ADL show that when they say take these other comments and all of that out of context, right? We're going to show something else. So then the guy said, this man called Jewish people termites.
Like termites. So can we separate the good and the bad?
Let's see the context when the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan used the word termites.
But I want to introduce you to him. He didn't come over there. He came from over there. But he came here to Black Bottom, Detroit. And who was in Black Bottom, Detroit? He was looking for a black man. He was looking for a man that had the right heart of love for us. And so he found him. And he set up a little place on Hastings Street. And Elijah, Poole was his slave name, came to the temple one day and he heard Moors were standing on their shoulders today.
Now, let's hear the context in which the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan used the term termite.
Now, to Muslims, between Detroit and Chicago, when they ran Master Fard Muhammad out of Detroit, he went to Chicago. And the moment he got there, he was arrested. He sent for Elijah again. Now, white folk don't like Farrakhan. Some of them respect me. But those who have been our deceivers, they can't stand me. I'm not mad with you. In fact, to the members of the Jewish community that don't like me, thank you very much for putting my name all over the planet because of your fear of what we represent. I can go anywhere in the world and they've heard of Farrakhan. Thank you very much. I'm not mad at you because you're so stupid. Don't you know, my teacher, Elijah Muhammad, taught me one day. He said there once was a donkey that fell in the ditch. And everybody came along, they picked up a stone and threw it at the donkey. They threw so many stones till the ditch got filled up and the donkey walked out. So my teacher said, brother, remember, every knock is a boost. So when they talk about Farrakhan, call me a hater, you know what they do? Call me an anti-Semite. Stop it. I'm anti-termite. I don't know nothing about hating somebody because of their religious preference. But just like they called our ancestors in the 30s voodoo people, they figure anti-Semite would be a good thing to put on us. Farrakhan hates Jews. Stop it. Now, to the Jewish people, you cannot find one Jew that one who follows me have plucked one hair from his head. You haven't found us defiling a synagogue. Our Quran teaches us if we see something like that, stop it. So why do you hate us so?
Now, what did you hear? How is it that the man right after that comment comes and starts talking about how he, under his leadership in the Nation of Islam, has a history of never harming the one hair on the Jewish person's head? How if I, a member of the Nation of Islam, saw someone defiling a Jewish synagogue, that I'm religiously obligated to intervene? Why didn't the rabbi say that? And I'm gonna give him the benefit of the doubt. You know why? Because he didn't sit and watch a whole 3 hour and 25-minute lecture of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. He's only being fed by the manipulative actions of the ADL. You're being deceived, Rabbi. But now that you hear this, now what are you gonna do? Let's go further. Let's look at this. What's the next thing? And the next thing, he talked about, the rabbi said that, this was, all right, we'll come back to that. It's a history of other people who call Hitler great. That's what that is. If you want to read that article, I'm trying to see, how should I edit this? I should just let it be raw. You go on Research Minister, you see it here, researchminister.com. You can read the actual article that has a bunch of people that used it, that talked about Hitler in a great, saying that he was great. But guess what? None of them were ever called anti-Semite. I'm gonna come back to that. Okay. So you hear Jewish rabbis and others say that people need to distance themselves from the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan.
I don't know. I mean, that's up to those who follow him. But, you know, if there was a rabbi who did great things for our community, but then said, like, this minority are termites and vermin and all this stuff, I think we would distance ourselves from that person.
Yeah. For what? People need to distance themselves from the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan based upon their manipulation and deletion of his words and taking his words out of context? If we need to distance ourselves from the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, then what about you all as it relates to the Talmud? Go, brothers and sisters, the Nation of Islam Research Group. This Talmud is the reason why that helped to give justification for Europeans to come and get our ancestors out of slavery, and where they could go to bed at night with a soothed consciousness, because they believed that they were not doing anything that was contrary to God's will. What do I mean by that? The curse of Ham. listen to what this says. According to Jewish historian Dr. Harold Brackman, the Jewish Talmud is the source of the notoriously wicked curse of Ham. And give you some brief background, Noah had two sons. One of them was Ham. He laughed at his father because he saw Noah drunk, and then said that Noah cursed him and said that his descendants will be drawers of water and hews of wood, drawers of water, hews of wood. But biblical scholars say that prior to the Jewish rabbis giving their interpretation of this in their commentary in the Talmud, nobody assigned ethnicity to this story. But guess who's beginning to start saying that this is talking about Black people? Look at it. According to the Jewish historian Brackman, the Jewish Talmud is the source of the notoriously wicked curse of Ham, which it says, which everlastingly condemns Black-skinned people to enslavement to Jews and whites. A Talmudic invention spread to the world. Brackman, who works for the Simon Wiesenthal Center, asserts that Jewish rabbis invented and spread the teaching that ultimately became the ideological foundation of the African slave trade. Do you know that this man came back and tried to condemn the book when the book, The Secret Relationship Between Blacks and Jews, and they were the ones, and we only quoted his research? Goes further. According to Farrakhan bashing Brackman, quote, there's no denying that the Babylon Talmud was the first source to read a negrophobic content into the story of Noah. The Talmudic glosses of the episode added the stigma of blackness to the faith of enslavement that Noah predicted for Ham's progeny. That's not all. That these same rabbis taught that Africans had kinky hair, swelled lips, and elongated penises, and that these traits were the curses from God himself. Rabbis, the same people who we are made to believe that they're our friends. So to anybody watching this, when you invite these rabbis on, posters, Nick Cannon stuff, ask them, how do they feel about that? Ask them, do they condemn the Talmud, and will they distance themselves from the Talmud? We didn't even talk about what the Talmud says about Jesus. Go further. That from the ancient time, the Jews' most revered rabbis were unified in their belief in the Black inferiority. Indeed, Black inferiority was the only thing that they all seemed to agree on. The alleged cursing of Blacks by God himself was entirely fabricated by racist rabbis to justify the massive involvement, Jewish involvement in the slave trade. We're going to talk about this book and how they try to this book is banned, one of the books that's banned from Amazon. Why? Right? So to the rabbi, what's your stance on this about the Jewish Talmud? What's your stance on these rabbis that gave ethnic origin to this and was responsible for our ancestors being in slavery, right? Then we go further in the interview. The rabbi said how Jews were on the forefront with Nelson Mandela.
Unity right now, so that there's no division created, you know?
Absolutely, man. It's so beautiful that you're having me on and that we're having, like, think about history, man. Like, when else in history ever could an African American, could a Black person, a Jewish person, even have our voices heard by the public? I'm just happy that we can even speak back or say anything. So I think we're in this together, against hatred together. Jewish people have always been at the forefront of progressive movements against hatred, whether it was with Nelson Mandela, whether it was...
You know what Nelson Mandela fought against? Apartheid, right? But do you know that there is research to show that the Israeli government supported the apartheid regime in South Africa? Maybe the rabbi doesn't know about that. Give him the benefit of the doubt. But let's look at this. Let's look at this. Let's look at this right here. Oh, look at this article. Israel ties to apartheid. Let me get me out the way. To the apartheid South Africa. This was written in 2010, right? And it's talking about Now that I have read the definitive book on the relationship between Israel and the apartheid regime, I understand why Israel is going to such ridiculous lengths to demonize Justice Richard Goldstone. He was, as Nelson Mandela testifies, an outspoken opponent of the apartheid regime. The Israeli government was its staunch ally, even though apartheid advocates studied under the Nazis. Nelson Mandela spoke high of the man that the Israeli government is demonizing. This man in his book, not our book, is not written by the Nation of Islam. This man in his book talks about how the Israeli government was its staunch ally, even though the apartheid advocates studied under the Nazis. Here's the book, The Unspoken Alliance, Israel's secret relationship with the apartheid South Africa. Look at it. The bottom line, Israel was one of the apartheid regime's closest friends in the world. It did not choose South Africa because it admired the apartheid regime. Only on the Israeli right was there anything but contempt for it. But Israelis, most notably, Simon Pearce, thought it was best to ignore apartheid in a world where Israel had friends to choose from. So basically, listen, we're going to ignore that because we need these people strategically because we're so outnumbered. We need friends. But how is that a friend? Where were the ones fighting against us? Where were the ones condemning this? Maybe the scholarship is out there. I don't know. Maybe I don't know. But, let's look at it. Then we can go a little further. If you want to go a little further, we'll go a little further. Let's see here. Let's look at this. Do we need to show this right here? I'm just going to play a little part of it, okay? I don't want to give y'all, just burn y'all, but check it out. But this is, quote unquote, my question to the rabbi would be, where were those friends of Nelson Mandela when this was going on? Where's the condemnation of it? Show us, it may be out there. But how is it that we find them on the side of the people that oppose and oppressed us?
Talks at the United Nations focus on the Middle East this week. We turn to new revelations about Israel's nuclear weapons program and its close alliance with apartheid South Africa. Israeli President Shimon Peres has denied reports that he offered to sell nuclear weapons to apartheid South Africa when he was defense minister in the 70s. On Sunday, the Guardian newspaper of London published top-secret South African documents revealing that a secret meeting between then Defense Minister Shimon Peres and his South African counterpart, P.W. Botha, ended with an offer by Peres for the sale of warheads, quote, in 3 sizes. The documents provide the first official written evidence that Israel has nuclear weapons, despite its policy of ambiguity and neither confirming nor denying their existence. But the Israeli president's office has categorically rejected the accusations in the report and released a statement saying, quote, Israel has never negotiated the exchange of nuclear weapons with South Africa. There exists no Israeli document or Israeli signature on a document that such negotiations took place. Well, the documents published in The Guardian were first uncovered by senior editor at Foreign Affairs, Sasha Polakow-Saransky. He went through 7,000 pages of never-before-seen classified South African documents while researching his new book, The Unspoken Alliance, Israel's Secret Relationship with Apartheid South Africa. For more on the story, we're joined by Sasha himself. Sasha Polakow-Saransky joins us here. Welcome to Democracy Now!
Thanks for having me.
Talk about these documents.
Well, there are 4 key documents involved in the Guardian story, and let me explain just a little bit about what each says. The first is minutes from a meeting between high-level defense officials from Israel and South Africa on March 31st, 1975, during which they discussed several things, including the possible transfer of Jericho missiles, and they use vague language to discuss warheads in 3 different sizes. Now, the Israeli government is denying that its signature or any Israeli signature signatures on that first document, this is actually true. It's minutes from a meeting between high-level officials. However, the second document, the same day, from the Chief of Staff of the South African Defense Force, he sends a memo to his superiors talking about how wonderful Jericho missiles armed with nuclear warheads would be for South Africa's defense strategy. And if you look through the archives, as I did, it's the first time that you actually see this issue discussed, and it happens to occur on the same day. Then, 4 days later, Shimon Peres and P.W. Botha sign a secrecy agreement governing all transactions in the military sphere between the two countries. Shimon Peres' signature is on that document dated April 3rd, 1975. And finally, if you follow this story on through the late 70s and the early 80s, you see that South Africa was only ever interested in Jericho missiles if they had a nuclear warhead on them. Various documents later on, as the two countries continued to cooperate in the sphere of medium-range missiles, show that South Africa only thought it was economical and useful for their defense force if these missiles were armed with nuclear warheads. So you put this all together the way that any journalist or any historian would, and it's very difficult to come to any other conclusion. It is an interpretation, but based on these four documents, you connect the dots, and it's quite clear that the South Africans perceived that there was a nuclear offer on the table. As I say in the book, and as The Guardian says, this deal never went through. However, the offer was perceived to be on the table, and the South Africans took it seriously enough to write a memo to the top officials in the military arguing how nuclear-armed Jerichos could help them.
And
but they lied and said that they didn't have it. They didn't offer this. Come on, man. They used coded language. Man found 7,000 documents that he went through. What did Nelson Mandela, I wonder what Nelson Mandela felt about that, right? Let's go further. Then the rabbi, he says how Jews were with Dr. King.
Rabbi Avram Joshua Heschel, one of the top rabbis walking with Martin Luther King in 1965 in Tulsa.
Civil rights, right? Let's see what our research team has discovered. So, civil rights. Type it in. You can go to this noirg.org and you can go research this. And if we lying, we stand down. So, what is the real Jewish position on Black civil rights? Let's see what it says, right? Here's Dr. King himself. Quote, when we were working in Chicago, we had numerous rent strikes on the West Side. And it was unfortunately true that in most instances, the persons we had to conduct these strikes against were Jewish landlords. There was a time when the West Side of Chicago was a Jewish ghetto. And when the Jewish community started moving out of the other areas, they still owned the property there. And all of the problems of the landlord came into being. We were, quote, we were living in a slum apartment owned by a Jew and a number of others, and we had to have a rent strike. We were paying $94 for the 4 rundown shabby rooms, and we would go out on our open housing marches on Gage Park and other places, and we discovered that the whites with a 5 sanitary, nice new rooms, apartments with 5 rooms were paying only $78 a month. We were paying 20% tax. The Negro ends up paying a color tax. And this happened in instances where Negroes actually confronted Jews as the landlord or the storekeeper. The irrational statements have been made are the results of those confrontations. Think about that. Are we saying all Jews? No. But when the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan is criticizing the Jewish community, these are the ones. The minister clearly makes a distinction. These are the ones. But members of the Jewish community want to act as if they don't have any ones that are not living up to the principles of their faith. The minister can talk about bad Muslims, bad Catholics, bad Christians, bad Native Americans, bad Rastafarians, bad Masons. But when he talks about the bad members of the Jewish community, he's anti-Semitic. Let's go further. That's what Goodman. And this is interesting. What was interesting in the article about him is on this thing that the dude Goodman, when they say like, We had a Jewish person die in the civil rights, and they talk about Andrew Goodman. Andrew Goodman didn't see himself as, he didn't practice Judaism. So he wasn't there because of his fate, like people trying to make it appear. Go read the research, right? Go right here. Goodman, a truly good man, went to Mississippi representing himself and attributes his activism to his socialist background. Having never practiced Judaism in his own home, the scholars apparently agreed, devoting no space and no entry to Goodman or Schwerner in the Encyclopedia Judaica. So he was there because of his socialist background, right? Then we go further here, talking about they threatened Jewish reprisals if Minister Farrakhan participated in the march. We're going to go further. Listen to this man. Israeli scholar charges Jews with Dr. King were racist. A new book by Jewish scholar Israel Shahak, Jewish History, Jewish Religion, casts doubt on the rabbis in the civil rights movement. Surely one is driven to the hypothesis that quite a few of Martin Luther King's rabbinical supporters were either anti-racist blacks who supported him for tactical reasons of Jewish interests, or were accomplished hypocrites to the point of schizophrenia, capable of passing very rapidly from a hidden enjoyment of rabid racism to a proclaimed attachment of anti-racist struggle, and back again. So he was saying like, yo, they was with him, but they had strategic reasons, according to him. And I'll use this time right here to go here to see what this rabbi said. And could this what he meant when he said this? When this guy wrote about those who were with Dr. King. Because it's quick to be said, or they marched with Dr. King. Listen to what this guy's name is. Rabbi historian Dr. Bertrand Korn, the acknowledged expert on the 19th century American Jewry, comes from The Secret Relationship Between Blacks and Jews. He, quote, "The Negroes acted as an escape veil in the Southern society. The Jews gained in status and security from the very presence of this large mass of defenseless victims who were compelled to absorb all of the prejudices which might otherwise have been expressed more frequently in anti-Jewish sentiment. The road to social and economic advancement and acceptance for many Jews was smoothed by the ever-present race distinction which imputed superiority of all whites." Basically, he's saying that, listen, man, they were able to avoid the hatred of these Southern whites because it was focused on blacks. Could that be the strategic thing that the guy is talking about with those who march with King? And this is why the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan talks about questioning the motives of those who benefited while our people were used as this escape valve, as he says, right? So let's go further. Let's see what else we have. Come back and cut that out. Come back and cut that out. Let's go back here. So let's look at this. Friends, NAACP and Joe Spingarn. Jewish leader Joe E. Spingarn was the chairman of the board of directors of the NAACP for many years. He was the president. The coveted Spingarn Medal given yearly by the NAACP was established by him in 1914. According to recent revelations by the Memphis Commercial Appeal newspaper, he was also a spy for the United States Army. Spingarn was hired in May of 1918 and given the rank of major in the Military Intelligence Division, MID. Spingarn and a black agent ran a small unit of undercover agents who were looking for proof of subversion. The MID opened 100,000 pieces of mail, right, a week and monitored black publications. According to the appeal, the document shows Spingarn, who remained NAACP chairman during the tenure at MID, used his post to obtain critical information for MID, such as a list of the organization's 32,000 members. Here's a man that occupied a very high seat in the NAACP, but he used it as a way to spy on the NAACP and other black organizations. Do friends do that? Well, the NAACP always practiced nonviolence. What would Dr. King feel about that? Let's go further. About civil rights. A rabbi in 1956, quote, "What our friends in the North do not fully appreciate is the fact that there is no difference between most of the Jews and the Christian neighbors in their attitudes toward the Negro." Wait a minute, what? This is not by a product of anti-Semitism, but an honest conviction. For these Jews, desegregation presents not merely a school problem, but also a problem of mixing races. Then he talks about how the members of the Jewish community were opposed to the integration of the schools during the Brown versus Board of Education. Why isn't this talked about? When they talk about their relationship with us, it's always flowery. We're your best friends. We've been through the same things, right? Talk about how they have supported us.
With the Torah, we care about you guys. My entire Facebook feed, which is almost all the Jewish community, is posting about Black Lives Matter. They're protesting all the time. They're passionate about it. Like, part of our people is being passionate when we see injustice. And if we can be of help to the community, like, we're listening. We're here for you guys. Let's engage in more conversation like this.
And see, brothers and sisters, this is why it is important for us to understand. He talks about, we're going to go here. He talks about how they supported us. Let's look at that. He says that they supported us. Here's one thing. I've been watching some videos about former dope dealers in DC, and they were wilding. One dude was in DC. He was convicted for one murder, but he got away with 9 murders. And this was during the time while we were there in the dope busters in DC, going into one of the most violent and drug-infested projects that Rayful Edmonds had some control in, because Brother Sharif talks about a meeting with Rayful Edmonds, right? Mayfair. Look what it says. The reputation of Fruit of Islam grows from the 1960s to the 1980s, and the residents at the Mayfair mansions take notice. Violence and the drug trade had enveloped the community that was now nicknamed Little Beirut. The Nation of Islam began selling their paper in the complex, and residents noticed that the drug dealers leave the NOI while the NOI was present. And so as a result of this, the brother formed an independent contract company that was not the Nation of Islam, an independent security contract, right, that hired members of the Nation of Islam because we were doing the work. But guess who stopped it? The people who say that they've been supportive of us. If you are not coming in to our neighborhoods to clean our neighborhoods up of drugs that we didn't bring into our communities, and we didn't create the environment that make us more susceptible to selling dope, why would you stop us trying to correct it? But listen to what it says. Let's see, in the article, it talks about what stopped it. What stopped it? Let's look at this. The American Jewish Committee and the Anti-Defamation League both took issue with an anti-Semitic group getting government contracts. The ADL published a report in 1995 detailing contract discrepancies in the NOI security contracts. The ADL claimed that the NOI security agencies were directly connected to the NOI. Most of the evidence in the report came from the NOI newsletter, The Final Call. The paper praises the NOI praises the work of the security agencies as a victory of the Nation of Islam as a whole. So they stopped that. Got the contracts canceled. And then once the contracts were canceled, guess who? The brothers couldn't go back in there 24 hours. Because like, if you were being paid, you can stay there 24 hours. But most of the work that you see us doing, we're doing it voluntarily away from our families. But then when it happened, guess what they did? They canceled it. And then the dope dealers came right back in. But how are you saying you support us? We already brought up information that we can question why you were there with us doing the civil rights. Not to say that there weren't some that were sincere, but we have the documentation that shows no, everything wasn't like what you're trying to say it is. Well, let's go. Let's keep going. Let's keep going. So the rabbi says that to the brother in the interview that we have a common history, meaning both of us were in slavery and both of us have faced discrimination. Both of us have caught a hard time. No, we don't have a common history.
Say that, I lived in Crown Heights, Brooklyn for over 2 years, and it really saddened me that there wasn't more of a cohesion between the Jewish community and the African American community. And there's just so much common history, from slavery to, the ghetto was created in Italy to house Jews away from the rest of the population. So I think there's a lot that we can feel, even though we don't have the same history. Like, I think there's that we have a shared goal to really bring love into the world, to bring more tolerance into the world.
We don't. And is a fact that needs to be known. And this is why, brothers and sisters, when you say a common history, no, we don't have a common history. You know why we don't have a common history? Let's look at it. No, we don't have a common history because you all benefited from our enslavement. How could a people who said that they were in bondage come back and enslave another people? How could you do that? And this is why you need to get these books. Because it talks about how they benefited from our enslavement. Same thing. The secret relationship between the blacks and the Jews. And what's so important about this is this, brothers and sisters. They try to act as if these books are anti-Semitic. Do you know that every scholar that has been quoted in that book is a Jewish scholar? No scholars from the Nation of Islam are quoted. It's all their research. So if you want to denounce the book as being anti-Semitic, you got to say that your scholars are anti-Semitic. And let me show you something. This is a letter written to the ADL Foxman, right? And it was a bunch of letters. He sent it to a bunch of people. But in the letter, he talks about this book, right? And what inspired them to why he put the research team to write the book. But what's interesting about this book, the minister told them not to take any information, even if it's true, from anybody that the Jews consider to be anti-Semitic. That's the heart of Minister Farrakhan. Even if it's the truth, he said, if they say that this is anti-Semitic, don't include this in the book. This book contains only the information from your scholars. And that's why it's called a secret relationship, because based upon when I see some of these rabbis speak and some of the members of the Jewish community speak, I don't think that you all really understand, because it's a secret. You all this history have even been hidden from you all. And let me show you this video. I'll show you this right here. This is what it boils down to, family.
Theory about banking, and also the idea that the Jewish people today are not the real Jews. And Louis Farrakhan.
This is what it boils down to. And this is the question that we're going to have to discuss, and we're going to get ready to close out.
Brothers and sisters in Georgia, Alabama, Mississippi, Louisiana, Texas, Tennessee, South Carolina, North Carolina, Arkansas, you all will know the price that our ancestors paid in this South to bring wealth and riches to America England, and the Western world, all of it was built on our backs. I don't want to waste any time. I asked the question, who are the real children of Israel? And I'd like to answer it right away. Go ahead, dear minister. Like any good lawyer in a courtroom, he tells you what he's going to prove. All right. And then he goes ahead and proves it and let the jury make the decision. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad has said that Almighty God Allah revealed to him that the black people of America are the real children of Israel. And we are the choice of God. And that unto us he will deliver his promise. This question says that somebody, yes, sir, has usurped our position. That's right. This question says that somebody has taken the promise of God to the children of Israel and claimed it for themselves. For those of you biblical and Quranic scholars, today we are prepared to call out the scholars of Christianity, Judaism, and Islam. If you can disprove what we say today, then I'll pay with my life a line.
See, family, this is the theological question that has to be answered. And if it's not answered, family, the world is going to continue to be in the condition that it is in. And this is the question that we feel that the Jewish community or members of the Jewish community is running from. That prophecy found in Genesis chapter 15, verses 13, chapter 15, verses 13 through 15, it didn't happen. That took place in 1555. And listen to what this Jewish scholar said, Brother Dimitri. Who are the real children of Israel? This is a theological question. It must be engaged and examined using the best research possible, not by emotional reactions to uncomfortable truths. The revealed truths contained within the life-giving teachings of the Most High Elijah Muhammad and the research of his student, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, is borne witness to by the highly skilled and academically trained scholars and scientists. But by avoiding serious dialogue and labeling the Muslims as anti-Semites, the public is routinely deprived of the truth. What better way to prove us false than by having a public sit down with Minister Farrakhan and students to prove to us our theology is wrong or leave us alone to do our salvic work among our people. Listen, this guy says, following 70 years in intensive excavations in the land of Israel, archaeologists have found out the patriarch's acts are legendary. The Israelites did not sojourn in Egypt or make an exodus. They did not conquer the land. Neither is there any mention of the empire of David and Solomon, nor of the source of belief in the God of Israel. These facts have been known for years, but Israel is stubborn people and nobody wants to hear it. This is who this guy is. He's saying that there's no archaeological evidence that actually happened. So if that's in the scripture, but there's no archaeological evidence, then when did it take place? And we're saying that we are the fulfillment of that. We're saying that we are the fulfillment of that. Here's more. He talks about this. He says the same thing, right? Rabbi David Wolf. The truth is that virtually every modern archaeologist who has investigated this story of the Exodus, with very few exceptions, agrees that the way the Bible describes the Exodus is not the way it happened, if it happened at all. And this is the real question that we have to get to. So for those who watch this, I know this is kind of long, and to the young brother, I know you brought him on there and you just let him share his story. But we have to begin to start pushing back on them. We have to, because there is a segment of their community that are falsely labeling people as anti-Semites, who are people who just want the truth out. We don't have any desires to do any harm to any member of the Jewish community. The same way that they hate anti-Semitism, we dislike it as well, because we know how it feels to be hated because of your skin color. But we cannot any longer continue to allow you all to falsely label the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan and the Nation of Islam with that dirty charge. Pray that you all enjoyed this. Leave your comments, leave your questions, and let's talk. Peace.